It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Hey everybody, this is Kyle Larson, driver of the Target Chevy number 42, and you're listening to The Front Stretch.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. As always, that is karting with a K. You can Google it. That's the easiest way to find it. The old Google machine will get you to and from Joe's Karting, get you all the hours, get you all the pricing. All the information is located right there. If you want some tips and tricks on how to get around Joe's Karting, some safety tips, some do's and don'ts, find them on YouTube. Just search Joe's Karting, subscribe to their YouTube channel. You'll not only get updates like the tips and tricks and the safety tips, but you'll also get updates when the Front Stretch loads our podcasts, well, our replays of our show. We understand that sometimes you don't get up a Sunday morning at 8 a.m. I like to sleep in at least one day a week. My boss prefers I don't do it Monday through Friday, so sometimes that happens on Sunday morning since we record earlier in the week, and I get to replay the show via the Joe's Karting YouTube page. And you can do that too. Just as soon as it gets uploaded, you get a notice on your smartphone, and you can listen to it while you're sitting in the shop at night working on your car, or while you're driving home, or whatever works for you. Got a lot to talk about today. A lot of news happened this week as far as penalties and driver, kind of silly season maybe picking up already. We're only 11 races down. We're about to hit our 12th race of the season at Dover today for the Monster Mile, and we'll talk more about that in turn number 4, but a lot of stuff going on. And preview for today's show, again, we're going to talk some news and notes during turn number 1, and in turn number 2, we'll talk with Code Red Cody Ledger. He's going to talk to us about his effort in the 2016 season for the Nebraska 360 Carpet Lands, and Pat Warren, track president for Kansas Speedway, will join us in turn number 3. We had a great conversation with him down at Kansas Speedway.
Yep, I'd like to make a quick shout out before we get going from our trip to Kansas. We had a great time. We talked to a lot of neat people, did some networking, trying to lay some groundwork, but we did get to spend some time with some of our friends. We got to spend some time with Rick Havenridge, and he was on a boys' weekend down there at the racetrack. So we went and hung out with the Havenridge guys for a a while, and then
I got to sit up on top of his RV. He's got a really cool setup up there, and
with the fishing seats spinning around.
And we even talked about One Price Portfolio, which is his company, and he partners with several guys on what goes on there. And so we had a nice conversation up there while we were waiting for, I think it was Cup, or it was truck qualifying is when we were doing that, and so kind of a nice little got to hang out with the guys.
Yep, and then went over to a huge supporter of the show, over to Chris Morris's trailer with his wife, and hung out. And Dan enjoyed some adult beverages. I spectated, but great conversation.
Well, I didn't want Chris to have to take all that beer back home. I was worried about worried about his gas mileage on Sunday morning, so I said, Chris, I'll lighten your load by a couple of beers, and he was nice enough to oblige for me.
The fact that his wife kept saying, "You want another one, Dan?"
That's the tough one. Is I always say, I'll just have one. I remember driving to this. I'll probably just have one, and you're like, yeah, okay. And then there was like 4 bottles sitting there after just one. It was weird. It was like they were like rabbits. They just multiplied all of a sudden.
You only drank one, I swear.
I keep telling people that.
At a time.
I tell the cops that all the time. No. I just had one.
Hey, did you see the one on Facebook today? Said cop pulled me over and walked up to my window and said papers. I said scissors and drove off.
Hey, speaking of cops, the NASCAR cops busted Kyle Busch. It had to been Saturday night or Sunday. And now Kyle Busch haters, I get a kick out of this because immediately when I posted this information on Sunday, it was Monday afternoon. No, it was Wednesday afternoon when that news came out.
Wednesday afternoon.
They waited a long time to make that announcement, but immediately it was, he cheated.
Well,
didn't matter what the infraction was. He cheated. And the infraction ended up being that not all 5 lug nuts on the front of the car, on either the left side or the right side, I don't know which one.
They didn't say.
They didn't specify. We know it was the front side because Josh, his front tire changer, and I can't remember his last name,
got suspended for
was one of the guys that got suspended for today at Dover. So we know it was a front side. It was a front end tire, but we just don't know which side. But at least one of them was loose. And this is the first infraction of the new rule that went into place pre-Talladega a couple of races ago, where NASCAR said 5 off, 5 on.
And they are literally checking all 40 cars, all 4 wheels.
We were kind of laughing about it at Kansas because there was a big to-do after Talladega. So now NASCAR says that the media and the media has to stay behind a line when the cars come down after the cool-down lap after the race is over with, and there's officials that stand there and kind of guard it. Now, in the past, media officials have been able to kind of cross that line and go ahead and just put the microphone in front of the driver and start getting their interviews, but after Talladega, NASCAR wanted to immediately torque test every one of those lug nuts on all 40 cars, and there were some media members that got in the way, and apparently there were some media members and sponsors and crew members that got their hard cards taken away until they went and talked to Mr. Mike Helton about their actions. And so at Kansas, that line was obeyed. Yeah. But Kyle Busch ended up finding out after the race was over with that he was just a few pounds short for torque-wise on one of the tires. And so his crew chief, Adam Stevens, was suspended for today at Dover and was fined $20,000. Later on, Thursday afternoon, Joe Gibbs Racing came out and said, "We insist that all 5 lug nuts were on. We admit that not all 5 may have been tightened. And so we will not appeal this penalty." So Adam Stevens will not be on the pit box today for Kyle Busch as his efforts at Dover continue.
And the front tire changer, not the carrier, but the changer.
Correct. Did I say carrier earlier?
No.
Okay.
Just specifying.
Todd Barrier will serve as crew chief at Dover.
Todd's been around
today. Good
forever. He's spent
choice.
a ton of time with Richard Childress and Kevin Harvick, so
he'll do good. And Kyle's on kind of a hot streak right now, so maybe Kyle can continue and get himself another
How
win.
about Gibbs? Gibbs is on a hot streak.
That's a good point. That is a very good point.
So all of them are in there.
So go back to the cheater thing. Now,
cheater had Busch.
This just
conspiracy.
This just irritates me that people do this, and it's probably just me being a little bit too thin-skinned. Maybe I just need to toughen up a little bit.
Or
but
from Iowa.
How in the world can not having all 5 lug nuts tight win you a race? I mean, that's just ridiculous.
Well,
it's just like going back to
pit stop, plain and simple.
But he won that race off of 2 tires, right? He came in that final pit stop, got 2 new tires. Kevin Harvick, who started on the outside of him, had 4 fresh tires. Kevin should have been able to pass him, but couldn't get by him. And so Kyle won that race solely off of Kyle's ability and the car setup. It had nothing to do with lug nuts.
Well, Harvick hadn't been a short-run car all night, and they talked about that. So after he dropped back about 4 seconds, he reeled about half of that in, and then everything equalized, and it was all over.
So there was no cheating about it, but immediately, anytime anybody gets fined by NASCAR, it's cheating. You know, automatically, they cheated. You know, it goes back to, we talked to Stan Caesar on the show last weekend with Tyler Drucke and Joey Danley at Eagle Raceway on Saturday night, and I'm not the tech guy. You could remember what it was, but they were off the lift or whatever
lift
it
on
was.
the camshaft was off like 0.003 of an inch.
0.001 of an inch.
Oh, I thought he said 3, or he asked me about 3.
And everybody can agree that that's not what won Tyler Drucke the race, and that's not what put Joey Danley in second. That's not enough of a difference to be able to give him that extra whatever.
Absolutely.
But according to the rules, they've got to get fined, and they lost the win. And so did, and Danley lost second place, and so that put, I can't remember who was it that finished third, and ended up getting the win that night.
I do not know the specifics, but it would not surprise me if both of those guys were running the exact same camshaft.
Exactly. That's just one of those things that, I mean, it's kind of one of those fluke things, and it stinks for the driver because they're the ones that are paying.
Well, and they hear about it. I mean, they're the ones that made the news, not the guy that built the engine.
And because people who just want to be haters are just screaming that they cheated. When common sense, and at least anybody who knows anything about engines will tell you, that didn't win them the race. So it's kind of a frustrating thing about this sport, and haters be haters, and Taylor Swift has a point. Haters gonna hate. I just quoted Taylor Swift on the show.
I'm leaving.
I apologize.
This is my last
move on.
show.
Let's move on.
He's quoting Taylor Swift. I'm done.
Ryan Newman's future at Richard Childress Racing is uncertain. Now, Ryan is in the final year of a 3-year contract with Richard Childress Racing, and we've kind of seen the writing on the wall for a couple of years. Now, Ryan went over to Richard Childress Racing when Kevin Harvick left Richard Childress Racing and came to Stewart-Haas Racing. They swapped roles.
Rides, basically.
Basically, they swapped rides. And I kind of had the feeling that Kevin Harvick left. There was probably a little bit of it that he'd been with Richard Childress for so long, but he just wasn't able to win that championship. And I think he kind of felt like he was getting phased out by the family.
Yeah, he needed a new breath, and he'd had that little scuffle with, I don't remember if it was Ty or Austin Dillon, but he had a scuffle, not necessarily a hand scuffle, a fight, but on the track, and he mouthed off saying, the kid's got a golden spoon in his mouth, and, I never had that. I had to win races coming up, and that probably didn't sit real good with Pop.
And I think he was getting kind of phased out, and I think you kind of feel that. I mean, Clint Boyer kind of talked about it a little bit, too. He said he looked at the future of Richard Childress Racing, and he didn't see one with him in it. Because Austin and Ty were coming up, and Richard wanted to find room for those two guys. Now, Paul Menard is pretty secure at Richard Childress Racing because Paul has his own sponsorship contract.
Yeah, he brings his own money.
And the smartest thing in this world is if you've got a sponsor that's paying the bills, just continue to let the guy drive. I mean, Paul's not the greatest driver in the world. I think when you talk about in terms of NASCAR quality, of the 40 cars that out there, Paul's probably a mid-pack driver. You put him down in the Xfinity Series, he's going to win a lot.
He's top of the mid-pack. I mean, he's not one of your elite drivers. That's why he's not at Gibbs or over at Stewart-Haas unless he was going to take Danica's seat. That's a marketing bonanza there with Danica around, but he's very consistent. He's easy on equipment. He doesn't stick his nose in a lot of holes, which has probably cost him some races.
Yeah,
I mean, his interview after winning the Brickyard was, I won. Well, somebody had to win. It might as well be me once in a while. I'm like, dude, at least pump your fist or something.
So you kind of wonder where Ryan Newman's going to end up, and I kind of got to thinking, Furniture Row, they're having a great year. They've had a great couple of years. They've talked about expanding to a second car team. Maybe that'll be a place that Ryan Newman and his cat sponsorship can come over and end up at Furniture Row Racing and be a second team and be a partner with Ryan Truex.
Cat sponsorship was with Richard Childress.
I thought I read that they had signed with Newman and that they were going to it kind of felt like the way the wordage was in the report I'd read that they were really in tight. You're right. That was definitely a Richard Childress deal, and who's a Jeff Burton that had that before that, and but maybe Ryan's relationship is stronger, and so they'll move with him. Who knows what'll happen?
Well, you've seen a lot more of that lately than you used to see.
Yeah.
Budweiser went with Harvick, and Pennzoil went back to Penske, where they've been in the Indy cars for years after, when Harvick made his move. Yeah, the sponsors are bouncing around. You don't see quite as much loyalty as what you used to see. Well, as far as the car owners, you're seeing loyalty to the drivers, which is something new.
Early results from Dover. We saw something really interesting early Friday morning as first practice rolled out. 3 laps into it, Danica Patrick has an issue. We ended up figuring out that her rear end gear came apart. She spreads oil all over the track. Tony Stewart and Jamie McMurray, who are right behind her, end up getting into it and slick as snot on a glass doorknob, they're into the wall. Both of those cars, I believe, Jamie Mack went to a backup, right?
So Tony bounced off the wall a total of 3 times. Jamie just hit once, but pancaked the right side and dinged up his elbow a little bit, but he was back practicing. He did go to the infield care center, get it checked out. I had no word on Tony, but he got out of the car on his own power. Danica jumped out of hers and ran over and was talking to him.
The 10, the 1, and the 14 all went to backup cars. And then there was also issues with the 4 and the 41, all Stewart-Haas Racing cars, with their rear ends.
Yeah, well, they changed them.
Okay.
Because they said they said that we're the new manufacturer this year, and so just for precaution's sake, we're going to change. The 2 gears they could run this week were a 411 and I think a 420 or somewhere right in there. I can't remember exactly what he said.
So when you said they changed, did they switch from one to the other or just switch out the same size?
They might have switched out to an older pumpkin.
Okay.
I don't don't know for sure.
And just because we're, the pumpkin is the term for that rear end housing.
Yeah, the whole housing that's got the gear set up in it. You pull that out, you pull the axles out, and the whole pumpkin comes out with the gears and everything in it. You have to pull the drive shaft out. That's all you have to do.
So after first practice, Harvick, Earnhardt, Kyle Busch, Edwards, and Stenhouse were the fastest. Qualifying was rained out. So according to the rule book, the field was set by first practice. That put Harvick on the pole with Earnhardt to his outside. It's going to be really interesting if there's rain in the area on Saturday, that there's going to be a very green track and a very tough track.
Yeah, I mean, it was basically green when they started, but Xfinity, I want to say they practiced for an hour before Cup and put some rubber down, but they had some issues out there too, just like everybody else does. So more than likely, the rest of their day rained out, and if it did rain out qualifying, it's probably raining out the truck race as we speak.
So that's kind of what we're talking about for this. And let's talk about a couple of NASCAR news and notes. We got a little bit of show left to go before we need to get over into Turn 2 with Cody Ledger. Watkins Glen, we talked about this last Sunday, that Watkins Glen was repaved, brand new asphalt. They're actually considering running the entire track, all 11 turns, rather than, I think it's 8 right now, right?
There would be 1, 2, 3, I was going to say 4, I thought, in the boot, but I could be wrong.
I think it's 11 total turns. But anyways, it doesn't matter. They have a little section they cut off as of
right out
last
of the carousel.
Race. Right. They're talking about adding that in for this year's race. Now, my question to you is, brand new asphalt at Watkins Glen, are you expecting much higher speeds, less passing? What do you think?
Is the tire changing? That's the question that goes along with the new asphalt. If they bring a new tire,
they did do a Goodyear tire test at the Glen earlier this week, and it looks like it included Kevin Harvick, Casey Kane, Trevor Bayne, Carl Edwards, Joey Logano.
All the big teams sent one driver,
and it doesn't say if they had a different tire or not, but it did say the entire 3.4-mile layout at Watkins Glen International has been repaved, although NASCAR events are contested on a shorter 2.45-mile portion of the track, avoiding the area of the layout known as the boot. So they were talking about it last week at Kansas. We were down there. It was one of the few times we get to hear what the media was talking about off the air and off the record, and they were talking about adding the boot this year. They've got plenty of time to do it. If they decide they want to do it, they just need to do a practice and kind of figure out what that's going to do for cars.
Well, they'll just run with their regular practice when they get there. I mean, Indy cars up there and stuff that have run there have always run the boot. NASCAR is the only series that hasn't. And it's just out of the carousel. When they come through the big sweeping carousel, the big right-hander after the long straightaway in the chicane, they come out of there, it takes a left turn, and then it is in the shape of a boot. So you go down the leg and around the heel and around the toe and then back up the leg and then back onto that straightaway.
Is it pretty short speed or pretty low speeds?
Well, no, it's got some good speed through it because they evidently it's about 1 mile in length.
Yep, about a mile.
So yeah, they've got a couple decent little straightaways. I don't know if they'll be fourth gear straightaways, but they'll be clipping along pretty good.
Because honestly, any opportunity I get for a tight corner, especially at a road course, I'm all about it because that's the perfect opportunity to give them the chrome horn.
To boot somebody.
Right, to give them the boot in the boot. Oh boy, how long is it going to take for Waltrip to boot onto that? Some of the other news, Martin Truex Jr. says he wants to remain at Furniture Row. When I saw this come out, I thought, good, because he's having a lot of success at Furniture Row. I think he's...
a lot of success, and he keeps inventing ways to lose.
Quite frankly, I think he's running a lot better at Furniture Row than he ever has run at Michael Waltrip Racing, where he ran into issues with them when they lost funding through Napa and he lost his ride and Furniture Row happened to open up. I think he's doing a lot better at Furniture Row. I think with their partnership with Toyota, they have a lot more resources available to them, and I think it's good for them. I think Kurt Busch really helped bring Furniture Row up to a new level when he raced for them. Was that a season or two? I think it was just a season. And then Martin Truex Jr. has done a fantastic job of continuing that, and I think that as good as he's running, as heartbreaking as it was for him to have that issue at Kansas, that he's still running so dominant. I mean, his car, if anybody says the race at Kansas, the first portion of it was boring, it had nothing to do with the aero package. It had nothing to do with the weather or the track. It had to do with the fact that Martin Truex Jr. and Cole Pearn put on a show.
Yeah, they were laying it down, man.
And you see it at every dirt track. Jesse Sobbing shows up to an A-Mod race, a weekly race. He's going to lay it to him because he's now a qualified an experienced US MTS driver, and he's just going to make him look embarrassing. It's the same thing as when Jack Dover shows up to a Nebraska 360 race. I'm not knocking
he's the guy
their
to beat.
talent, but he's just a level above everybody else, and that's the way Cole Pern and Martin Truex Jr. were at Kansas. They had for God's sakes, they were a second ahead of everybody else within 2 laps of a restart. That is ridiculous.
Yep.
And you can't really look back and say we did anything wrong, because it was a mechanical failure. What was it, the year that Kevin Harvick won his race, or won his championship, 2014, that he just absolutely, he had mechanical issues if he wasn't winning.
Oh, he'd have won 10 or 12 races.
Right
if he
through the
had
middle of the season, they kept having the weirdest things go wrong. I think one race they had a lug nut fall down into the wheel well, and when he took off, it knocked the, the air stem, the tire stem.
The valve stem.
The valve stem, thank you. It knocked it off. That never happens. And I've never heard of it happening ever since then.
Well, in this deal that happened to Martin with his bolt head breaking, it's an oddball deal, but the fact that it just slid down and, evidently fell on the dust cover on the spindle or something, and the wheel couldn't get it tightened up. You see that happen every once in a while with a lug nut. A lug nut will get behind the wheel, but that bolt supposedly coming off of that brake rotor, that's just out there. That ain't normal. Yeah,
and so those are just kind of those weird little things. We didn't get to talk about it Sunday during our recap while we were at Kansas Speedway, because we were just so busy with stuff to talk about. But one last news I want to talk about was Matt Kenseth and Joey Logano had their little issue at Talladega. And we all saw the news article. I posted it on the Front Stretch page of Matt shaking his finger at Joey and just saying, if that's the way you're going to race me, then that's the way we're going to, he kind of drew a line in the sand and said, I'm tired of you racing me like this. It's kind of one of those things. But I'm getting too crossed up on my thoughts here, but the whole incident started when Joey Logano ran Matt Kenseth down the track, coming out of turn 2. Coming out of turn 2.
Turn 2, it was down the back straightaway.
And Matt was trying to make the pass along the backstretch, and Joey ran him down the track to block, to hold his position. That's what you do at Talladega and Daytona. Your primary job is to block. You keep the guy from going around you. And Matt took offense to it. And Matt got pretty heated about it. But apparently, Joey learned from his issues last year. Now, if we rewind about, 8 months ago, the October race at Kansas, Joey wrecked Matt, and Joey was going for the win. Joey's mistake was that he never called Matt and tried to smooth things over during the week. And when Matt was effectively eliminated from the chase, Matt got his payback.
Matt eliminated Joey from the chase. I'm plain and simple.
He said, if maybe the guy would have called me and talked to me a little bit, maybe it'd have been a different story. But he never did anything. He just acted like he did nothing wrong. Well, he learned his lesson this time. And on Monday after Talladega, Joey gave Matt a call and said, we need to clear this out. We need to go back to racing each other as respectful, maybe not even respectful, but just not aggressive, and try to stay away from each other on the track.
Well, the deal in Martinsville where Kenseth took out Joey it brought out the quote of the year from the racing community. Everybody was talking. I don't know if anybody bothered to listen to that, what do they call that, radio electric?
The radioactive.
Radioactive, where they do all the scanners talking to the drivers and whatnot. It's great. You really need to start listening to that show if you get a chance, or that segment. But they were talking about Matt crashed him, and Tony Stewart said he didn't crash him, he junked him.
He was absolutely right. And by the way, his we can go back and talk about this, but his fans went skyrocketing.
Oh, his fan base became huge.
And that was, I love going back and watching that replay of that race, because as soon as it happens, the camera angle was seeing some of the fans in that area. They all jumped to their feet and just started cheering. They loved it, because that's not something you typically see out of Matt Kenseth. That incident and the incident between the haulers with him and Brad Keselowski, it was either at Charlotte or Texas. You never see that side of Matt Kenseth. And it was interesting to see that. But, all right, we got to take a break. We'll come back. Turn number 2. Code Red, Cody Ledger, will join us to talk about his 2016 effort and some of his goals for the end of the year. And then in turn 3, Pat Warren, track president for Kansas Speedway. And we come back in turn number 4 to wrap it all up with the preview of Dover. This is The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Heading into turn number 2 here on the front stretch, I am Dan Taylor. That is Dirk Houston. We are taking you through another beautiful hour and a Sunday full of racing conversation. A couple of weeks ago, while the Nebraska 360s were at I-80 Speedway for the Bug Eater Bash, we sat down with Cody Ledger, driver of the number 35 Nebraska 360 Sprint car, and I started off the interview by making sure if he was going to be running the full season.
Yep. Running the full Nebraska 360s and hit some NSL and ASCS National and just kind of, go wherever we want to do and try to hit as many races as possible.
You said NSL, that's obviously going to be in the 360s. Do you have a 410?
No, we do not have a 410. We're just going to run the 360 and, like I said, run as many shows as we can and try to get some more wins.
Still kind of getting that 360 underneath you a little bit still, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we've run for a few years now, and it still feels like we're always learning. You could be running for 10 years, and you're still learning something new every night.
I was talking to your dad, and your dad said you got something going with a mini sprint too, huh?
Yeah, we bought a micro, and we're gonna dab around in that just to fill some shows up. We have holes in our schedule, and if that doesn't pan out, there's always a 360 race somewhere we can go run.
Any worry that running a micro might, taint your 360 progress?
I wouldn't think so. We ran a few times last year, and not last year, but a few times the last couple of years, and we done well with it. And it's the same, but it's not. I mean, the horsepower is way different, but you still gotta drive the car, so it don't really matter what it is.
Well, and it could be a good confidence booster for you, too. I mean, confidence is huge in this sport. When you get on a tough streak, you can really get down on yourself, and it's tough to build out of that. But if you're winning in something else, then it gives you that good momentum.
It could, but it's just like with any other racing, sprint cars, midgets, go-karts. I mean, you go down to the, different class. I mean, there's still really good competition, and you don't want to degrade them just because they're running a lower class than you are. I mean, it's just as good as competition as a 360 or a 410, winged or non-wing.
What about Knoxville Nationals? Going to try to race the 360 Nationals again?
Yeah, we're going to attempt. Attempt's the best word to say.
Didn't you make the show last year?
We made the prelim show, and we just struggled there weeks before that, and so making the prelim show was a big confidence booster. Then just kind of went downhill after that.
Yeah, I've had quite a few conversations with your dad over the last couple of years, and in fact, I've got to talk to him a lot more than I've got to talk to you because, I run into him at bars. But I'm just kidding. I don't. I really do. But it.
To him at the arena cross.
Oh. Yeah, we just kind of seem to run into the guy. He's everywhere. What's the relationship like with him being kind of the team owner and the supplier of a lot of the stuff, and then you being the son, being the driver? Is there tension there because you're kind of getting to the age now where it's a little bit of you're trying to become your own person, and so there's a little bit of natural friction between father and son?
Yeah, there's friction. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, and it doesn't help that I work for him. He owns the company that I work for, so I see him every day. And the sad thing is we argue about the same thing. It's just about different ways we go about it. It's all going to come out in the same way. It's just that he wants it done this way. Well, I can do it this way, and it still equals the same thing.
Oh, my dad was the exact same way. He wanted me to do it every way he did it. And I'm like, but I've got a better way. And he's like, well, I've been doing it that way, so your way can't be any better. Well,
yeah.
Maybe it is. Let me do it. And he didn't like it. One time I told him, I said, sometimes it's better. There was like a study I heard about. It said sometimes it's better to let your son do and fail rather than constantly tell him how to do it, because then he learns on his own. He didn't like that.
No,
because he wanted to tell me how to do it.
That's the way I've learned. He always says that he knows best, and there's been more times than not that's been true. He's definitely helped me out with a lot of different situations. Not bad ones, just personal life situations.
Yeah. Do you guys ever get to get away from it all and just have some pure father-son time, like with working for him on a daily basis, and then you guys are at the racetrack together working on the cars and racing and the stresses with all that? Do you guys just get away every once in a while and say, let's just go to the lake today? Let's not talk about racing. Let's put some lures in the water and just relax.
No, he's not a big fisher or hunter guy. Me and my uncle go hunt, during the off season, but during the summer, I mean, we're so caught up with working and racing. When we're not doing that, we're at the shop, working on the cars and maintaining, and this is never really enough time for us to go to have fun and outside the racing. Everywhere we go, it could be Texas, and somehow we'll go to the racetrack where we're watching a race, and we're always around a racetrack.
Yeah, it's so funny because it's something that I learned with being around the Kaziskis, with being friends with Andrew and Joe and the entire clan, is that no matter where they're at, they always know what the nearest dirt track is at. And you could always say, like with my family, when I hang out with my family, I'm like, what do you guys want to do tonight? We're on vacation, and I don't know, maybe we'll go try this. Let's search on the internet and see what's going on. And you're ever around a Kaziski, and I'm sure it's a Ledger's like this too, of what do you guys want to do tonight? Well, that whatever dirt track's only an hour away. Let's go see what they're doing.
Well, my dad and a couple of his buddies had a supply house that we buy our electrical stuff from. They went to Daytona for the 500, and that's what first thing he called was they had some downtime, and they knew there was a USAC race down there. So the first thing he said, he goes, look this track up and see how far it is. We got nothing going on tonight, so we're going to go hit some dirt tracks up. You're at a stock car race, but you can go stock car, asphalt, whatever. I mean, dirt track's always in the blood.
Talking with Cody Ledger, driver of the 35 for the Nebraska 360 sprint cars. How old are you?
19.
19? What about college? What are you going to be doing? Are you going to do it? Are you going to bother with it?
I'm not going to bother with college. Like a 4-year college. I'm in a 2-year apprenticeship school at the Metro University.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my journeyman's license. Then as soon as I get that done, I'll go back to Metro and to get some other miscellaneous stuff done that I think down the road could be helpful.
Yeah. Oh, as expensive as college is, man, I don't blame you. I mean, I took a 2-year program for radio. It took me 3 years to finish it. But luckily, I had some funding through for my dad to go to college, and my grandparents gave me a little bit of money, so I didn't have to worry about student loans anymore. But man, alive, is it expensive?
I realized that this year. I mean, my dad helped pay for the first year, and this year he let me say that if I'm going to pay for this race stuff, you got to pay for this college. I can't do it all. And there was one time for the second semester I got dinged because I wanted to go pay for my college that semester, and I didn't realize I was the first of the month, and I got dinged with my truck bill. It was like $1,000 swing in one day.
Oh, that's a rough one. What else? What's life aspirations? Is racing going to be your career? Is that what you're wanting to do, or are you looking at racing as more of a hobby and just kind of having fun and doing it as a weekend thing?
That's the plan, but sometimes plans don't always work out. So I mean, I'll still be in the electrical field my entire life, and unless I can find something to do within the racing world that's a niche that no one's not doing right now, then I'd love to stay in that. I would always love just to work or drive or crew on a team, even though if I don't make it.
Mm-hmm.
There's always plenty of jobs in radio.
I bet.
Not anymore. I don't know if you heard the whole iHeartMedia thing that's going on, but it's getting rough. Radio is going to get turned into a whole different world in the next 2 or 3 years, but that's why we got to sign our contracts now, by the way. The electrician thing, that's always good because, I mean, the good thing is electricians are always a very needed commodity.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like an automobile plant where they got robots that are building your cars or whatnot. I mean, a robot can't wire a house because a house is changing 24/7. Even a day from now, there'll be new stuff out, and you can't keep up with that.
How do you keep? I mean, the electrical world's got to be changing a lot with the whole going green and staying energy efficient. So that whole landscape's changing quite a bit.
It's all personal preference what the homeowner wants, but that whole going green thing, it costs a lot of money, so a lot of people don't. They kind of stay away from it.
Yeah, I looked at it for my house, but I mean, my house is so small that what it would cost to do it, like you said, I'd never recoup the money.
Yeah,
even the money.
Light bulbs.
Yeah,
go to LEDs. Those are the best things. I
did that. I took my electrical bill when I first moved in was like because it was a husband and wife that was living there, and of course there was a woman living in the house. The lights were on all the time, so I don't really take too much credit for it. But it was like $85.
Hair dryer.
Right, it was $85 a month, and I've got it down to $39 a month. I'm doing pretty good with my LED light bulbs.
They pay for themselves. They're really expensive, but 2 years down the road, when you get your energy bill back and your light bill, and it's cut in half.
Yeah. What else? Any other kind of special stuff you're planning on? We talked about the Knoxville National 360s. Any other big 360 races you're going to try to go race? Maybe the midgets or the Chili Bowl later next year? Early next year?
Yeah, we will run the Chili Bowl. We got another midget that we're putting together right now slowly, but we're going to try to hit some other midget races this year just so we don't go to the Chili Bowl, blindfolded and have to relearn everything in 3 days.
Yeah, and be kind of caught behind the 8 ball.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. Those guys that run out there at the Chili Bowl, they do this for a living, especially the ones that are the A-Main. They're racing 70 shows a year, and to be able to run with them up front, you got to run 70 shows with them. If not, just to be competitive and you make it to the qualifier, A-Main, you still got to run X amount of shows just to know your car and what it needs to do to adapt to the track conditions and the ongoing thing at the racetrack.
Yeah, and when you get up to those big touring series, and especially places like that, I've found that, the grooves get smaller and smaller. What was it Scott Bloomquist told us when he comes here for the Silver Dollar Nationals, that a groove for a late model can be a half a tire width. And he's adjusting his groove every lap to where he's putting his tires. And when you're talking about the SLMR series, as far as late models are concerned, I got to imagine that it's a rear tire width, or maybe a half a car width is the difference on your laps, and maybe even here in the Nebraska 360s. But you don't know that little stuff because you've never been able to run with those guys and watch as they move their lines.
Mm-hmm.
Do you get to pick up that stuff at all with the Nebraska 360s? 'Cause, there's some talented guys that race those series.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, there's talented guys everywhere we go, and you just go out, watch the big, watch the Brian Browns, watch the Stan Lazowskis, the Jack Dovers. You just, by watching what they do to the car every night, you can learn so much.
Mm-hmm. What's the biggest thing you learned last year for your car?
Biggest thing we learned last year was how much, what shocks can do for you and how they could hurt you and also benefit you. Right now, the shock program for any team right now is the most essential part, because if the shock's not doing what it's supposed to, the car's not going to do what it's supposed to. You can go out and have wrong stagger or whatnot, but if your shocks aren't dialed in to even being close, you got the backup beepers going on.
Yeah, you can overcome stagger. If your stagger's a little bit off, you can adjust your driving style and make that work. But if the shocks are bad, or if you missed, what's your shocks program cost? $6-7 grand?
Personally, I don't know that. Our shock
Sometimes
program,
it's best not to know what they cost.
I don't ask. That's probably the best answer for that. Is I don't know. I don't ask.
Paid the bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But our shock program it's slowly getting better. We just got some shocks back that we ran Thursday for the hot laps, and we'll find out if they're going to work for us or not further in the future.
All right. Well, Cody, best of luck to you, buddy. Good luck
you.
this season. Track or series championship for the Nebraska 360s, right?
That's the plan.
All right. Good luck, man.
And more wins.
That's right. Good luck, buddy.
Thank you.
And a big thank you goes out to Joe's Karting for allowing us the ability to be able to grab those kinds of interviews with some of the equipment they've purchased for the show. And a thank you goes out to I-80 Speedway for giving Dirk and I media passes that day to head out to the Bug Eater Bash and conduct a few interviews. We have more great front stretch still to come, as Danny the Dude Lasowski will join us to help preview the I-80 Dirt Classic coming up this Friday at I-80 Speedway. We'll be back here on the front stretch.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100-plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the front stretch.
Hey, this is Kurt Busch, driver of the number 41 Haas Automation Chevrolet. You're listening to The Front Stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Like the big voice guy said, we are heading into turn number 3, and that is Dirk Houston, I am Dan Taylor, and about 10 days ago, a little over a week ago. Actually, it was, now that I do the math correctly, it was 8 days ago. It was on the Friday before the Hollywood Casino 400.
So was that Iowa math or Common Core math?
That was Iowa math.
Okay.
I assumed 10, and then I realized, wait, no, you have to actually do math because you're on the radio and people believe what you say.
Not like the internet.
Story. My brother keeps asking me, by the way, he goes, what grain bin did you tear down, by the way? I said, don't worry about it. I probably broke one or two in my day. So we sat down with Pat Warren, the track president at Kansas Speedway, the day before the Go Bowling 400, May 7th at Iowa. I keep saying Iowa Speedway. See, now we're done with Kansas Speedway, so I focus on Iowa Speedway for the trucks in the Xfinity coming up. Now I'm all crossed over again. But we sat down with Pat.
We sat down with Edward Williams, too.
We did. That's true. The PR director, marketing director for Iowa Speedway. So we saw a lot of people down there we got to have good conversations with. But we talked to Pat because they had just announced, so we talked to him on Friday. I think they'd announced on Thursday that Kansas and Talladega had switched their 2017 chase races. And so we wanted to kind of talk to him because I honestly kind of wanted to know if he had to send some barbecue to the Talladega Superspeedway track president to maybe grease the wheels a little bit to give up that date, because an elimination race in the chase is very coveted. When you talk about coveted races, first off, you talk about having one of them 10 chase races. And then you talk about having an elimination race because that ramps up the suspense level.
Well, there's only 3 out of 36 races are elimination races. So.
Absolutely. So we started off by asking him exactly what went into getting that to go. And here's the audio from that. So, again, we started off the conversation with him by asking him what it took for him as track president to get that deal to go through.
Well, we all work very closely with NASCAR. This year, not because of that, but because of other things, I happen to be a little bit more involved with the scheduling process than I had in past years, but it honestly had nothing to do with that change that ultimately happened. It was just sort of a role that I was asked to fill, for lack of a better term. And, Talladega has phenomenal racing and certainly has a long, very rich history in the sport. And I don't think it will ever be possible to have a race at Talladega that's not exciting. I'm certainly biased and think the racing here is great. But I guess I don't see this change as such a huge shift in the sport. We moved back from the 4th race to the 5th race 2 years ago, so that Charlotte could stay on Columbus Day weekend. This switch is sort of like that. It is a bigger deal because it's an elimination race, and it would be dishonest of me to say I'm not excited about that being here. But I think we're still going to have great races at Talladega. I know we will, and we'd have great races here whether we were running an elimination race or running the 5th race like we are this fall.
I was kind of wondering the role that the track president's playing as far as scheduling, because it's easy for fans to look at it and say, well, let's just move this race around, let's just move that around, but there is a lot that goes into this because you got to keep in mind local weather, local events, local everything, NASCAR's ability, the track's abilities, the driver's abilities, and the convenience of it all.
I would say, I can't use the term collaboration strongly enough because I really think that's what it is us working with NASCAR. And when I describe the scheduling process to fans, it's not even a puzzle. It's more like a Rubik's Cube because you've got to think about the multiple series. You've got to think about other events. And sometimes you have to think about got to think about IndyCar. Texas has a truck IndyCar event. And so if their truck event moves, it affects IndyCar. And so it affects other sports, other series. You've got things like the Masters that you got to think about from a television perspective, the Final Four, early in the season, although we don't start that early, but the Super Bowl would be a factor. In the fall, you start thinking about football season and television. And NASCAR is the one that ultimately has to sort of think about all those pieces of the Rubik's Cube, and they work with us. And it really is a team effort, and it wouldn't get done if it weren't.
And Kansas Speedway obviously has to deal with late in October, and now with the surge of the Royals. Are they going to be in the World Series? Is that going to be an issue you guys are going to have to deal with in October? It's probably a good issue for the city. A little bit of a headache for you guys, though, sometimes.
Yeah, the Royals have gone from 1.3 million in attendance 2 years ago to about 2 million last year, and they'll probably hit about 2 million again this year, maybe even beat that. And so that does affect us a little bit. But as a lifelong resident of Kansas City, it's a problem I like to have. And I think it's better for the city and it's better for the sports environment here to have that. I don't really feel like we compete directly with the Royals or the Chiefs or Sporting Kansas City. It's more about people's time than anything else, and to some degree money, certainly. I mean, I don't want to ignore that. But everybody's busy. You know, I've got 4 kids. I know how sort of overprogrammed our family is, and it's just tough. It's tough to make it to things, and you got to decide what's important and carve out time and set aside some money in your family budget and do what you want to do.
Racing is very much a family sport, so are any of the Warren children working in the concessions, parking cars, you know, kind of legal slave labor yet?
Well, I don't think labor laws would even let us do that. My oldest is 14, so they've only been coming to races for about 2 years because the age range is 14, 10, 9, and 7. And so 2 years ago when the 7-year-old was 5, we felt like he was probably old enough to make it through an event. And so, you know, the important thing for me and my wife is that whenever they're outside, they've got hearing protection. And I tell everybody who brings kids to races, it's critically important. You almost have to use the ear muffs for kids. The ear plugs don't work, and you don't know if they're in correctly. The kids don't know if they're in correctly, and they can't tell you. But it's really important if anybody's bringing kids to a track, they have some kind of hearing protection.
I'm sorry, I grew up on the farm, and you mentioned something about child labor laws? What is that? I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, farmers may be exempt.
I think they are. At least that's what my dad used to tell me. So as track president, what keeps you up at night?
Everything. You know, that's probably the most honest answer. The things that really bother me are the things that we can't control, like weather. And so having a week like this where we've got phenomenal weather, and it looks like we're going to have phenomenal weather through the weekend, takes a lot of burden off because weather – I consider weather to have an exponential effect on the fan experience. So it's like squaring or cubing the event, good or bad. And so like last year when we had all that rain, you know, if you think about it from a fan perspective, you pull in and the parking lot's got mud. And so you get out of your car and you may or may not, you know, be in sort of a muddy spot and you're walking in and these places are big and we don't have paved parking lots. And so you come in, your feet might be muddy when the day starts. You sit down. If the weather's bad during the race, it rains, you get wet, you're not comfortable. All those kinds of things, you know, compound. And it's not just it doesn't make just things marginally better or worse. I really think it makes things exponentially better or worse. And so, you know, I think having great weather like we've got this weekend is phenomenal. Now, having said that, we've got to work through it. We do everything we can to mitigate those problems. We do everything we can to get the cars back on the track, to making the parking lots as dry as we can under the circumstances, you know, to do everything possible to make the fan experience great. But ultimately, weather has such a huge impact on our sport, and that's probably the thing that I worry about the most, and it's also the thing that you have absolutely no control over.
Well, I know from coming down here for several years when you first put the spring race in, and now you've moved it back a couple weeks, but I know there were a couple of those mid-April races where the weather was just, it wasn't fun to be in. I mean, it was real windy. It wasn't super cold, but do you think it's going to have a big effect moving back now a couple weeks into October? I mean, you're almost into snow season.
Yeah, the change in the schedule next year only moves us back 1 week. And so if we were moving back 3 weeks, I would be very concerned if we were moving in November or something like that. Ideally, to be honest, we would have a race date probably in late September in an ideal world. But other people want races in late September. And, you know, as I said earlier, it's a collaborative effort. And so, you know, if Kansas Speedway could be completely selfish, we would have a night race in the summer and we'd have a day race in late September, and our world would be perfect. But our world being perfect would make at least 2 other tracks' worlds imperfect. And so, you know, and that's not how things operate. It's not how you work together with people. And so, you know, we work collaboratively with NASCAR and the other tracks, both inside the ISC family and out through NASCAR, to try to make the best schedule you can and the best situation for everybody.
So what are some of the things that Kansas Speedway has been working on that we may see implemented maybe in October or the next couple of weeks?
Well, one thing we've implemented this year that we're trying for the first time really today and tomorrow is season ticket holder parking. So our season ticket holders will get to park in the lots closest to the grandstands. And that's a change that came about because those lots used to be filled with all of our PSL, personal seat license customers, and just as some of those people have given up their tickets or other things, we now have the space to be able to do it and accommodate more people there. We're looking at putting gravel roads into our parking lots, a little bit like Texas Motor Speedway, if you've been there. And again, that's sort of a hedge against the rain. Not very sexy or exciting, but something that we think, you know, we need to do. A lot of the things that we're looking at are what and I didn't ever work with him, so I hope I'm paraphrasing this correctly, but it's Bill France Jr. used to talk about traffic and trash. And you can, we can do a lot of things to try to make the event great. We can do a lot of stuff for the fan experience. But if the facility isn't clean, if the bathrooms aren't clean, if the traffic doesn't work right, the other stuff doesn't matter. And so we really do focus on trying to achieve what I call operational excellence, because to deliver the best guest experience in motorsports, you've got to have a clean bathroom. Your concessions have to work right, and we've got a great partner in AmeriCrown that does that. You want to try to get cars in and out as quickly as possible. And then you add things like the pre-race experience where you bring 20, 25,000 people down and they sign the start-finish line. They get up close to a pre-race concert and driver introductions. And, last year we moved the drivers' meeting tent into the sprint fan walk. And so we try to incrementally add things, but we also focus, we focus very hard on continuing to do the things well that we need to do well. And we try to focus on enhancements that impact not just tens of fans, but maybe 10,000 fans, because while it would be phenomenal for 100 or 200 fans to get hot garage passes and go into the Cup garage, and they're going to have a killer experience, that doesn't move the needle for our business. And so to move the needle for the business, you got to try to get 2,000 or 20,000 people into a garage-type environment or those kind of things. And that's what we work on. We're doing, I think, 3,500 garage tours of the Truck Series garage today. And we're doing a couple hundred in the Cup Series tomorrow. And the Cup number continues to grow as we work with NASCAR. Cup garage is really crowded on Sundays. And so, again, going back to that collaboration, it's about working with the teams, the drivers, with NASCAR, doing everything we can, understanding that, the teams and the drivers are here to compete. And so if you've got too many fans in the garage area, they can't do their jobs. And then, on a day like today when the garage is hot, it's not safe to have too many people in there. And I think because of the phenomenal safety improvements the sport has made, I think people sometimes overlook the amount of hard work that we do, that NASCAR does, that the teams do, to make simple things safe, like getting around the racetrack. And we have to be constantly vigilant about it, or you can have a mistake and a bad outcome. And so that's what we do.
And again, that was Kansas Speedway track president Pat Warren doing a fantastic job down there at Kansas Speedway, coming up with new ideas and everything that they're doing at the Speedway down in Kansas. Look forward to going back down in October. I'm honestly a little worried about going back down there a week or two later next year.
We discussed that with him.
Yeah,
that was off the record. He went off the record with us for about a half an hour after we recorded and gave us a lot of insight into EPA stuff and the politics that are involved with something as simple, you would think as simple as repaving the speedway.
Yeah.
Kind of got into a big hassle with the people from Kansas.
Yeah, the local EPA and the local government down there in Kansas. But the way he basically said it was, it doesn't matter when you run your race. You're always going to have trouble with weather.
Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs has taken a page out of IMCA's rulebook and gone crate. These brand new low-emission engines will still have you white-knuckling it all through the Metro's fastest indoor facility. Joe's Karting is now friendly for all skill levels with their brand new Honda-powered engines. It's time to get to Joe's today and find out what drivers like Jack Dover, Shaylee Bate, and Andrew Kosiski have known for years. Located in Council Bluffs and online at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Hey, I'm Joey Logano, driver number 22, Shell Penzo Ford, and you're listening to the front stretch.
Just about ready to wrap this baby up. Rolling high, wide, and handsome into turn number 4. Let's talk about Dover. This is a very, very grueling track, exhausting for the drivers because you basically never stop turning, right?
Oh, no. You've got two straightaways, but when you go into the turn, as described by Brendan Gaughan in his first trip to Dover, I said, so what do you think of the track? He goes, I'm good for 2 laps. And I said, 2 laps of what? He goes, I can hold my breath for 2 laps, and I breathe once or twice and hold it for the next 2. He goes, when you go into turns 1 and 3, and you turn to make your arc into the corner, it's like jumping off a building. He goes, everybody as a kid's found that country road where you drive 80 miles an hour and you jump over and your stomach goes airborne and stuff. He goes, you're doing that twice a lap at this place.
I had about 3 or 4 of those growing up. They're priceless to have. But, it is kind of...
400-lap race, so you're going to do it 800 times in a couple hours.
This race last year, Jimmy Johnson got the win. Kevin Harvick, Kyle Larson, Casey Kane, and Eric Almirola came in your top 5. Again, leading the most laps, but not getting the win. Martin Truex Jr., Jamie McMurray, Paul Menard, Clint Boyer, and Jeff Gordon round out the top 10.
Now, this could be another track that could play something with the rookie contenders.
Yeah.
Because this is a tough track to run. It really is. You're not going to see, well, I can't say you're not going to because it could possibly happen. You could see an oddball type winner. But if you go back the last 10, 15 years for the 2 races a year, this is a who's who of racers win this track. I mean, that one guy named Kyle Edwards who's kind of on a hot streak right now. He's known as Concrete Carl.
Okay. He does like the concrete tracks. And so explain that to me a little bit. What is the big difference with the concrete and the asphalt? If I understand right, is it concrete has far more grip?
Far more grip because it's smooth. Concrete on a racetrack is finished like your patio, not like your driveway.
Okay.
Asphalt's like your driveway. It's abrasive. That's why the asphalt tracks have to be redone, so often, where the concrete tracks don't have that issue.
So then why don't they asphalt's probably cheaper to redo.
It's cheaper. It is also has to do with weather in your area is a huge deal because everybody's been down the interstate and seen how often the interstate cracks up just, from the heat and the cold and the cycles. I mean, that's why in the atmosphere that we're in, you don't see a lot of asphalt tracks up this way.
Mm-hmm. And I've noticed a lot with the interstate, by the way, just kind of a side note, that they're laying a level of concrete and then they lay a level of asphalt so that it's almost like you've got your support structure underneath, but then they can easily take up that asphalt and they're not spending as much money replacing an entire layer.
Well, the asphalt is usually a quick fix after the concrete has been worn in. I mean, the interstate is always concrete. And then after it needs a bunch of repairs and has a bunch of chuck holes, then they'll go back over it and asphalt it. And just to do that layer of asphalt back and forth, they don't have to do any of the actual dirt grading, the rock laying, the sand laying, all the prep work. They can just go right over top, scrape it off, and put their couple inch of asphalt on and get by for 8 or 10 years, and then they'll be doing it again.
One of my favorite sites to go to over the last couple of weeks, driveraverages.com, says Kyle Larson has the best average finish at Dover since February of 2014. He is 7.25. Martin Truex Jr. is 7.5. Brad Keselowski 8. Kevin Harvick 8.25. Jimmy Johnson, who I believe has won there 10 times in his career, is quite a ways back. He's 10th in average finish. So that's the reason why I like this is because it gives you a shorter window, which I think is really important with NASCAR. You talk about like with baseball and football, some of those long-term stats are really important, but their playing field and their footballs don't change from year to year. A lot of this changes. They get different tire compounds. They have different chassis, different manufacturers, different aero packages. So this short-term picture is really kind of interesting to look at. And Kyle Larson, again, has raced there 4 times and has 3 top 10 finishes, and he's leading all active drivers with the best average finish since 2014.
Well, and Kyle had a real strong run going at Kansas, and he proved that at Kansas that he's hungry for a win.
Yeah.
He wasn't laying back and going to rest for a couple laps. He was out there trying to get after it when he got towards the front. He's looking to, get that first win. He wants that first win, and he needs the first win.
The race for today is Fox Sports 1 and MRN. Check the Facebook page. I don't know exactly what time.
Fox Sports again.
I know. We got to keep waiting for it to get better. But we just grin and bear it. Just a couple of more weeks away, and we'll get to Daytona, and NBC could take over. But the race at Dover today, MRN and Fox, you can check on the Facebook page for when the exact green flag times are. Make sure you head over to Quaker Steak & Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch today, for all the action from the Monster Mile. And then we'd love to see you on Tuesday night for our Sprint Car Roundtable, our Sprint Series Roundtable, whatever you want to call it. We don't have an exact catchy name, but we're going to talk about sprint cars, 410s, 360s, and we're going to talk a little bit about the 305s because we got to figure out a way to keep these 410s and 360s in the area. I quite frankly think they're a dying breed, but we want to hear from you. We'll do it again all next weekend as we're going to air that roundtable discussion, and hopefully we're going to talk with Scott Bloomquist to preview the Go 50 at I-80 Speedway on Tuesday, May 24th.
You know who else we can wiggle in there with Scotty?
Who?
A young man we talked to in Kansas by the name of Bobby Pierce might be good.
I don't think that audio came out. We'll have to try to get him on the phone. Maybe.
Oh, no.
So we'll do it all again next weekend as we always do. This is The Front Stretch presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590, Omaha's ESPN Radio.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole for the front stretch and the best place to catch all the NASCAR action today. Open at 11 a.m. with delivery available to Council Bluffs.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Are you looking to book your next outing? Look no further than Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Located just north of Bass Pro Shop, Joe's Karting can handle outings of well over 100 plus people. Bachelor parties, corporate outings, team building, birthday parties, and much more. Give Buddy a call today and reserve your outing. Joe's will even work with local restaurants to cater your event. Book yours today at joeskarting.com. That's karting with a K. It's time to get to Joe's and find out what everyone already knows.